Welcome to Elisha's Space, where we explore intentional living and the joy of being true to oneself. In today's compelling episode, we are honored to welcome Amani Jackson, a distinguished author whose words have touched the lives of many. Join your host, Elisha, as they delve deep into authenticity.
Hello, audience of Elisha Space. It is so great for you to be included with this space that we're in today. Today, I have Amani Jackson with me. And Amani has written some wonderful books in regards to women taking empowerment back to themselves. And with that being said, like you taking who you are and moving in a place of power within who you are as an individual. Her books that she has written about is something that I thought would be very, very good for us. She has written the book Legs Closed, Mommy's Sick Day, Shaken Not Stirred, and Nations of Africa. She's also written some children's books and coloring books as well. We Love Wild Cats, Central and South America, and I'm a Big Boy Now. So I thought she would be great to have on the show because all of her books are about uplifting, empowerment, and identity, like knowing who you are and reaffirming who you are. And I thought that would be a great addition to our show because lately in our last episodes, we've really been talking a lot about identity and reaffirming who you are. And as I've said in the past, when you know who you are, people can't tell you who you aren't. So it's really important to know who you are. So, Amani, I want to thank you for joining us today on the show. It really is a pleasure to have you here today. I was just wondering if you would mind sharing a personal story about your journey towards self love and the challenges that you've kind of faced along the way.
Absolutely. So, what happened to me was I was my mother's oldest child, and I was my father's only child. And so you can imagine, and they were separated when I was young. So you can imagine the two different lives that I had in the different houses. I was in charge of my younger siblings. I had a lot of responsibility when I was at home with my mom. When I was with my dad, everything was about me, and I was just a princess. And so I knew how valuable I was when I had my dad. Unfortunately, my dad died when I was 16. And so that whole support system and way of life ended for me of being pampered and being loved and being told how incredible you were all the time. And I was just the big sister. I was the helper in the house. And my mother really didn't have time to dote on me completely. Not that she wasn't loving, she was just a single mother. She had other things to do than to boost my ego all day. And so once my dad died and I didn't have that level of support and love that I was used to, I started growing up. I was 16. I started dating. I started having girlfriends who were dating. I went off into college. And so the typical things happened. I was making decisions without having a father in my life to help guide those decisions. I was making some bad decisions in relationships. I had lost some valuable female friendships just because either we grew apart or they had their own struggles or they had kids and started families. Life just started lifing on me hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started meeting women who, as my years progressed, I started meeting women who had started lamenting some of the choices that they made. And I thought these women were phenomenal and they thought I was phenomenal, although I thought I was making some terrible choices and reaping, the sowing, reaping what I was sowing. And so I realized that we were no longer seeing our value. Things had happened to us, and we began to feel like we were only the sum of our choices. And we no longer had our beauty, no longer had our power, no longer had our wisdom. We were no longer worth what we originally felt we were worth in our younger days. And I was like, oh no, that's a trick of the enemy. I was like, you're
Mm-hmm.
not about to steal from the world what I was sent here to gift to it. And so
Right.
I started speaking to women and encouraging them that we have to see ourselves through different lenses because we've allowed the enemy to get us messed up and we don't see who we are anymore.
Right. And that's so important because that's a common theme where we, especially women, well, people don't feel like they're enough. And we truly are.
Mhm.
We are enough. That's so, so important. What brought you to a place of making you feel like realizing that you are enough? Like, what did you do to get there?
So I just started digging deep within myself. I started understanding what I have to bring to the world. When I tell people to radicalize self love and self worth, what I mean by that is not just saying I'm worthy, not just having your daily mantras because and they're great for you to get in the space that you need to be in. But step outside of yourself and don't look at it in a vain or a shallow manner. Say to yourself, what is it that I can bring to the world to enrich it? Every person that I come in contact with, what can I leave with them? What piece of me can I leave with them? What transference of my energy can I use to uplift them, encourage them, inform them, give them a little bit of love? You never know how much of that somebody else needs. Somebody could be falling off a cliff. They can be looking fine on the outside, but they could be hanging on by a thin, thin strand on the inside. And you can be the one to pull them back from the ledge just because you've released some of your power, some of your love and your greatness. There's so much within each one of us. Somebody can just be sitting there thinking that they have nothing to give. Oh, I'm lonely. I'm just me. Nobody needs me. Nobody loves me. Who said that? Who told you that? Who
Right.
told you that? Where did you get
Right.
that from? I
Right.
guarantee you there's somebody out there that needs something that you have within you. And even when you have that low energy about yourself, it's just because you're not feeding your spirit properly. When you feed yourself what you need to become the best version of yourself, you have unlimited potential of what you have to offer other people and then what you have to offer yourself as well because we can self-feed ourselves. I love
Right.
to read. I love to educate myself. And so what I do is I have like my self-care rituals where I make sure I'm clean. Clean my face, clean my body, make sure my bed is clean, make sure everything around me smells clean. And then I get in my bed and I read and I learn something. I learn something. I teach myself something because knowledge is where it's at. Wisdom is where it's at. You're so empowered when the more you know, the more empowered you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go into a room and I shift that atmosphere just by being in that room. And I make sure that I leave any person I come in contact with the better for having met me. And not the better because of my ego or because, I'm anything greater than anybody else. Just that I left them with something that they didn't have before they met me and they can use it to their betterment.
It sounds like you did some, if I can use the word shedding, and some taking down of mass in order to get to this place. What did you have to shed?
Pride. Oh, baby, I had to shed pride. Let me tell you, because again, back to my dad, he had me thinking I was everything. And then
Mm-hmm.
he had me in a cocoon. I was a very sheltered young girl. And then as I went to college and as I learned the world does not revolve around you, Amani, that was a devastating blow. Um,
I'm sure.
and this is just real. It's
Right.
just real. And
Right.
so when I learned that, everything was not going to be fair, I was going to have to fight some things harder. The world was not just because something was done to me that was wrong didn't mean I was going to get justice for it. I had to really
Mm-hmm.
learn some things and come off of a pedestal. And I say that to people all the time. I had to come off of a pedestal and look at the world for what it was and then say, that doesn't mean I'm any less. It just means I can now acknowledge the reality of the situation and I can address life accordingly. But I'm still a powerful entity here and for other people. Life
Right.
is just now all about me.
Right, right, right. Absolutely. I kind of think I had to shed that too when I was growing up. I know I had to shed that too. And it's a constant, continual thing that you're shedding. I think it's a constant, continual thing that you have to shed. The other side of this too, if you want to call it the other side, are the societal expectations and cultural norms that really impact a woman's self worth and dignity. Let's take a moment to talk about that and also how can we challenge that to empower ourselves. I think society does a very good job of telling you who you should be versus who you are. And that's all part of defining your self worth. It's all part of self love and self care. Like I was saying, the more you know who you are, the less you're able to receive what someone else tells you you should be. What are your thoughts about that?
I think you're absolutely right. Especially, I read a finance book. It was about the history of currency. And it was talking about how when the Federal Reserve came, colleges and universities became public and they started, instead of training you to be a critical thinker, someone who could function individually in society, they now focused on you being an employee because, now we were turning into globalization and these corporations were coming up and corporations need employees. And so, having funding from the government, they in turn want employees who will be able to boost the economy. Everybody can't be out there doing their own thing. These corporations would fall. And so when you have people telling you who you are, you have to realize that's because they need you to buy into their image of who you should be. Because
Wow.
without you buying into that image, they collapse. Not you, they collapse. And so they need you to acquiesce to that. And it's the same thing with society's standards or their norms or their expectations. They want you to look this way. Colorism is still a huge thing. They
It
want
is.
you to they want you to be a consumer. You have to have these fashion brands. You have to have these name brands this, and you have to have Marc Jacobs, or you have to have Gucci. It's all over. Every time you look at a commercial, all over social media, if you are not in this tier, you don't have this lifestyle, what are you doing with your life? Well, I'm living according to my standards,
Mm-hmm.
Who
Mm-hmm.
said beauty has a straight nose? Who said beauty is green eyes? Who said that? And how does that person have the authority? They don't have any authority. So I
Right.
tell young girls all the time in my book Legs Closed, and when I speak to young girls, I tell them you are the standard of beauty. When you look
Mm-hmm.
in the mirror, that needs to be the standard of what you find beautiful. We
Right.
are not looking outside of ourselves for beauty. If you have black eyes, that is a standard of beauty. If you have a curly short fro, that is a standard of beauty. Do
Right.
not exclude anything about yourself as beautiful, because that's where they're starting to get it twisted. And then they're looking at everybody else and they're not good enough. It's that standard. The standard of
Right.
beauty starts with you. And it's okay. If you think somebody else is beautiful or you think something else is nice, that's okay. But you better include yourself in that.
Mm-hmm. And also too, who defines, okay, so let's look at it from a corporate place too. Who defines what beauty should look like? It's really these organizations define what beauty should look like. It doesn't have to
Oh, and they
do
make
with
me so sick. And they make me so sick because, I'm
mhm.
locked. I'm a locked beauty. I have locks in my hair.
And
And I always had
her
to
locks
prepare
are pretty awesome, y'all. But go ahead. Mm,
and I always had to prepare myself to be
mm-hmm.
posting bail for someone stepping to me about my hair. Because you're
Right.
not gonna tell me Timmy can come up in here with a mullet
Right.
and you have something to say about my locks that are clean, that are always organized, that are not, breaking off and saying anything. You're not going to come to me about my hair. It always devastated me that these children were told they had to cut their locks or they had to take their braids out. And I mean, I'm not talking about yellow, green, purple, orange fake hair. I'm talking about normal black colored braids, something that was just so subtle, just brown or black braids and everyday hairstyles, nothing that was it's distracting to you because she has an afro. No, our beauty is too much for you. You feel inferior just by staring at us. And so you have to try to diminish all of our natural attributes just so you can feel comfortable.
Right.
That guilt and that sense of inferiority that they try to mask with superiority,
Mm-hmm.
it's a dangerous thing. It's a
Right.
dangerous thing. It costs you nothing to mind your own business and stay out of my way and let me just be who I am naturally if I'm not causing any harm or any stress to you. But my pure existence triggers you. And You're not even a thought in my mind.
And you know what? If overall people were to like really get to know each other, because we all bleed the same, right? If people were to really get to know each other, you might find out that that person is more beautiful than you realized.
And I think they do. I think a lot of people do realize that on a one-on-one. But
Hmm.
if you've gotten to our age, what you will notice is the sheep and the herd complex.
Right.
Once they get around the
True.
others like them, they have to fall back in line because that's their
Yeah.
community and they
Right.
don't want to be ousted. I've met plenty of people from other cultures who were absolutely fine with me one on one. And we would have probably been a powerful partnership, in business or in corporate America or spiritually even,
Hmm.
but they didn't have the strength to stand apart from their community and say, what y'all think is whack. I'm my own person, and there's nothing wrong with this girl over here, except for what you want me to feel is wrong with her because of your perspectives and your biases. Corporate America, unfortunately, with the glass ceilings, I tell people all the time when they're so happy about their position and they talk about diversity and inclusion, because that's the federal standard. These companies probably wouldn't even have those programs if they weren't mandated to. And so when they talk about it, I say, well, look at your CEOs, look at your CCOs, your CFOs. Who are the people on the executive boards? Do they
Hmm.
have diversity there? Because the higher up you go, the less diverse it is. You
Yep.
cannot talk to me
Very
about
true.
corporate diversion and inclusion unless those executive boards, that CFO, that COO, that CEO, unless they are diverse, don't talk to me about it. Because if you look back at slavery, every person in that field was black. Those lower level employees were black. But that slave owner, he was white. Everybody running that management, they were white. Those were the few people. They were the smaller numbers. The larger number of people on the plantation were the employees. They were the slaves, and they were all black. So it looks like slavery to me.
So, in ways to build empowerment to those that are experiencing these things, I'll tell y'all my story. So, my story was, and I'm not going to reveal anything too personal, even though y'all know a lot of my story anyway, but I was part of this organization and I kept applying for promotions and I kept getting told no. And so I got tired of being told no. And so on the side, what I started to do is build businesses. And eventually it got to a place where those businesses were, and yes, one of those businesses is the private practice, y'all. I was also dealing with some health issues too. And I think it was because of stress from the job, honestly. And I got to a place where I couldn't do both. And so I chose me. And so, ways to empower yourself is recognizing what your passion is, what's important to you, following your purpose, whatever that purpose might be, and then you establish your own road. I know this is a podcast that goes out worldwide, but we do live in the United States. So I'll make this statement. So in the 70s and before the 70s, there were more Black owned businesses. And then after the 70s, there were less Black owned businesses because more people were working for companies. And so I forget what the percentage was specifically. I can look it up and put it in the show notes. It's not a big deal. But what I found is that our community was doing a lot better when we had our own businesses, when we were feeding into our own community. And I wanted to be part of that story. So, a way to empower yourself in regards to this, and Amani, I think you could probably add a lot to this too, is rewrite your own story. You don't have to fall into the herd. You are enough. You don't have to follow what everyone else is doing. If you know inside of you that you are a writer, then write. If you know inside of you that you are a singer, then put some pieces together and put it on YouTube or put it on SoundCloud. You know, that's what people are doing now. So don't ever let somebody else block you if you know that your destiny is for greatness. So that's one of the things that I would suggest regarding that too. And I hope I didn't interrupt you when you were talking, but I wanted to get that out because I think it's so important to know you don't have to be a product of what everybody says you should be.
I think the word of the day is audacity, right?
Absolutely.
Audacity. Because a lot of us feel like we're not good enough, or we need a little more training, or whatever excuse we're using to procrastinate, stepping out into our purpose or our passion, to not be under the yoke of corporate America anymore, or whatever country you're in, and to be self-employed and to generate generational wealth for your family,
Right.
right? And so a lot of us are scared to do that, but there's a saying, one of the wealthiest places is a graveyard, because people take all of their talent, all of their ability, all of their inventions to the grave because they were always so scared and so insecure, right? You have to think about audacity. You have so many people out here that are not talented, that are still making money doing things that they don't have talent or experience doing. They just had the audacity to step out and say, I'm going to start this, and there is a niche market for it, and people are like, oh, well, somebody's going to hear you, somebody's going to see you, somebody's going to need your service, and you learn as you go. When I started writing, I didn't go to school for journalism. I had an idea, I put it out there, and I started going. People started seeing that I was writing. They wanted to write also. They were asking questions about it. I started ghostwriting because people didn't have the time or the courage to write for themselves. So now I'm ghostwriting. And again, didn't go to school for journalism or anything, but I started reading books on editing, reading books on style, reading books on writing as I went. Because you're not going to tell me I'm not ready to do it yet. And even when I was my worst enemy at night, having imposter syndrome, and when you get imposter syndrome, kick it out the door because you belong in that space. Get
That's
rid of
right.
it. You know, just focus, and what's the worst that can happen? You make
Right.
a mistake. Okay, you fix it. You fix it and you keep going. You know,
Right.
you don't know something. Okay, with all the technology we have, you better YouTube it. You better instant message somebody who's doing it and ask them, "Hey, do you mind being a mentor? Can you give me some advice? What is this?"
Hmm.
You better go buy a book. There are so many resources out there. I just started my publishing company.
That's
Who
cool.
I never thought I was going to be a publisher, but
Hmm.
it was a progression from what I was doing. So I started as a writer, having no experience. Then people got me to ghostwrite for them, and I started writing for so many people. And then after their book was ready, they were like, "What do I do now?" And the next step is getting it published, and they had so many questions. So I was like, "Well, why don't I just become a publisher?" I mean, all of it. And what
It goes
background did I
step by
have?
step. Right.
Step by step, and I'm getting licensed in it. I'm doing everything as I go. And if I mess up, I fix it. And I
Hmm.
read the books and I take the courses online, because there's always a course for something. And
Yep.
let me tell you a little cheat code, right? There's a website called Masterclass. And baby, if you need to learn anything, you're gonna learn it on Masterclass. They have
Hmm.
everybody. They have Tiger Woods teaching golf. They have Serena talking about tennis. They have Shonda Rhimes from Scandal talking about writing TV show. There's no excuse. And the class, it's a $99, or I think they might have kicked it up to $149 membership for the year. Not per month, for the year. You spend that in a weekend going to the club or going to a restaurant on a date.
Right.
Invest in yourself and get up from under corporate America, because corporate America is telling you your value. Corporate America is telling you you are worth $25 an hour. You are worth this amount. That's what your time is worth. The time that you could be with your family, the time that you could be on vacation, this is what you're worth. And you can't take vacation beyond the little 40 hours that we're going to give you. So you better maximize that throughout your year. You can't take the time off for this. Where you're going to let a company tell you how to live the one little life, the one short, beautiful life you have?
And that even can be applied to anything. Like we're talking companies, but it can also apply to unhealthy, toxic relationships. And I'm not just talking romantic, I'm just saying connections in general. You have the ability, you have the strength, you are enough, you have the wherewithal. Maybe we should call this a podcast episode Audacity. You have the audacity to step into moving into a healthy place. You don't have to stay there. It's
Absolutely.
about stepping out and doing what is comfortable for you. That's what's important. Tell me a little bit about, because community is extremely important. Tell me how you built your community, how your community found you.
So I built my community by being around people who were going in the same direction I was going in, which, to put it broadly, is forward. right? They didn't have to all be writers. They didn't all have to be self-employed, but they all did have to be going forward in life. I had some people that I was connected to from the past, and I love them to pieces, but they were energy drains because no matter how much I tried to pour into them, they were absolutely fine with where they were in life. The language, like, I don't speak with a lot of profanity, if at all, and so I can't take a lot of profanity because for me it's just so remedial. I'm like, there's no other way for you to express yourself, and I do understand language. You have the right to express yourself how you can. I just can't take a lot of profanity. It sounds very aggressive to me. And then the type of conversations you have. I'm 40. I don't want to talk about sneakers all day unless you have built an empire from selling sneakers, and this is your bread that you bring home to sustain your family. I don't want to talk about sneakers all day. I don't want to talk about celebrities. Again, I don't know them. They don't know me. Their life goes on without me. They don't contribute to any part of my daily life except for entertainment purposes. I don't want to talk about those things. So I've had to put people in the peripheral, on the outskirts of my life because they're not moving forward. People who even are at a more elementary stage of their lives, if I am able to mentor them and they're actually taking, you know, good pieces of the advice that I'm giving and I see that they're growing from it, those people I keep close to me because even though I'm not getting as much from them as they're getting from me, it's a symbiotic relationship. I'm here to be a resource. People don't realize how valuable that is. I read the book from Charlemagne the God. It wasn't Shook Ones. What's Black Privilege, I believe. And he just talks about I love Charlemagne. I didn't really love Charlemagne at first, but as I started listening to, I thought he was a jerk, but you have to learn Charlemagne. And then I started reading his books and I was like, I really like Charlemagne. So he talked about doing things free, like when he was starting to be a DJ back in South Carolina, when he was getting up there, not always getting paid for things. And this in the back of your mind. You have to, you have to pay homage and do the grunt work to get where you want to be. But being a resource is more valuable sometimes than having the actual position, because when people need you, they're always going to come back to you. They're always going to call you for the information. I would rather be necessary. I'd rather be needed than to just have a title. Because what if you have that title and you don't know what the heck you're doing? People are going to go to the person who's a resource. They're going to be like, she don't know what she's talking about. Let me go find Amani before this gets all the way messed up. And so yeah, that's how I keep my circle. I weed out people that are not moving forward. I weed out people who drain my energy. I weed out people who I know are going to be toxic, who are going to lie, who are going to be envious, who are going to damage anything that I have going on. And that way I keep it tight. And I like people who do feed me, who keep me going, who hold me accountable honestly. And you can feel that energy. You can feel when people are backbiting and catting. You can feel when they're authentic. Don't be afraid to release people who you know are toxic just because you've known them for a long time. And don't just keep toxic people around you because they have something to offer you, because they can be more detrimental than beneficial to you in the long run. You can get that benefit from somewhere else. It doesn't have to be from a person that's going to hurt you in the long run.
And I will also add that a lot of times that is organic. And the reason I say that is because when it is organic, what I found is that if you're moving in a certain direction, you attract similar energy around you when you're moving in a certain direction. And what I found is that people who are moving in a certain direction become attracted to you because you're flowing from a similar space. You're flowing from a similar frequency. And so what I have found is that as you are moving towards your goals, as you're moving towards your dreams, as you are choosing you, like even if you're not in the best relationship and so you're choosing to step out of that and you're making healthier choices for you, things of that nature, you tend to draw people who are similar to you because you're giving out that energy already.
But you have to be careful. But you have to be
Yes,
careful that you understand something. You have to understand your actual energy, because you can be moving forward and you can be
very true.
progressing and having to offer. And I talk about this with my learning to love me events. If you are not loving yourself, say you're moving forward, you're doing great things, but you're in a bad space mentally or emotionally or physically, that still shows up. And so you can be hard for people to be attracted to, because that energy that you're putting off because of what's happening in your personal life is a barrier. It's blocking people coming to you because they see that on you. I had to learn that. And my mother, works with me with that. I was not approachable. And it wasn't because I didn't want people to approach me. I was just not an approachable. I had resting bitch face. I mean, and seriously, and I had to look at myself in the mirror. I was like, do I really? And I really did. And I would think I was smiling, but I was not smiling. I was like, girl, all this time, yeah, like I have to make sure my teeth are showing, because in my mind, I'm smiling. And in my mind, my eyes are like, I'm smizing like Tyra Banks. But in the mirror, I'm kind of grimacing. And I'm like, what is happening? And it's because I'm thinking about some things in the back of my mind that are going on in my personal life, and it's showing up all on me and I don't even know it. And so you have to take that time with loving yourself to make sure that you are working through those things so that it could be lifted and it could be purged out of you, so that your real energy can really shine through and it's not being clogged. It's like a detox. You got to let your self-love detox all that stuff that's going on. And I know speaking about it seems easier than to the people that are actually going through some things. But what you have to tell yourself is, I am really robbing myself and others of how magnificent a relationship with me could be if I just flush this stuff out of me. These things are not the end of the world. We have a terrible, I'm talking from experience. So I'm saying we, but I'm meaning me because it's something that I've walked through myself. We have this habit of feeling like our right now is our forever. And it's not. It's just taking up so much of our energy and emotions and time right now because we don't know how to deal with it. Let it go and move forward so we can be in a better space. And it could be something you're going through with your children. And I know that's hard for parents. It could be something you're going through with your children. It could be your marriage, your relationship. It could be your health. Everything is temporary. Everything. So you cannot let that rob you. You cannot let your right now rob you of your next hour or your next day or your next week.
And that is so important that you cannot allow your right now. We are always in the middle of something. Even if we're closer to our goals, we're always in the middle of something. And you are right. We have to continually be doing, I think that energy piece, that frequency piece, making sure it's from a pure place. I think that's a continual thing that you're constantly going to be looking to do a cleanse so that it comes from a healthy place. And I get you on the mug, girl, because I was seriously, I know I put this picture up and people are like, you look angry, you look sad. And I had just come out of this really bad breakup with this person. So I totally, totally get it. And regarding vulnerability, a lot of times what you're also talking about when it comes to audacity, when I'm picking up, is not to be afraid of being vulnerable. That's an important thing, that we should not be afraid to be ourselves, to be our authentic selves, and that there's strength in being vulnerable. It's not a weak thing.
Absolutely. Being vulnerable is healing and therapeutic, not just for you, but for other people. You will have so many people who need to hear that they are not the only ones experiencing what you've experienced or feeling how you feel. And it helps them move forward, because then they're like, well, how did you deal with it? It's just like people saying you need to go to a therapist. You need good, solid friends in your life who are honest with you. If everyone's walking around saying, well, I'm perfect, I don't have any problems, then the people around you feel like they can't say they're having problems because you've set this standard and they're expecting, oh, this is a perfect friendship group. Everybody's perfect. Nobody has problems. I can't be the weak link. I can't say, oh, I'm feeling this way about myself, or I just found out I have cervical cancer. I just found out that my husband is cheating. I just found out that my child wants to be transgender. Because you nobody around you is saying they have any problems. So you're dying inside. And then you're stuck in this friendship group because you feel like these are the friends you want. You're married to this group and you're not going to go anywhere else and have authentic friendships. So now what are you doing? You're killing yourself. You're killing yourself. And so I don't mind talking about experiences that I've had. And I have had so many great people stay in my life because they were like, oh my gosh, I needed to hear that because I went through X, Y, and Z. And even if it's not the same thing, sometimes people just need to hear that somebody else is going through something so that they could say, okay, I can talk to you because, you were willing to talk to me and you don't have your head up your butt thinking that you're this great person with no problems. You're relatable. People want relatable people in their lives.
Very, very true. Very, very true. Let me ask you this, Amani. I have truly, truly enjoyed our talk. What is one practical step our listeners could take today to start their journey towards stronger self love, reclaim dignity, and radical self worth? Because that's kind of all in the umbrella, I think, of audacity.
This is going to take some time. It is not a 5-minute thing and it's not a day thing. It might even be a year thing. Take a deep breath and be real with yourself. Be real with yourself. Any lies, any walls that you've built up to protect yourself, tear it all down and really get in tune with who you are. What's nasty about you? What's ugly about you? What's beautiful about you? What turns other people off about you? Because something about you turns people off. What turns you off about you? What's incredible? What would you not change for anything? And then once you can uncover all those truths, start feeding yourself what you need to thrive. What do you need? Do you need to improve your health? Do you need to reconcile some relationships? Do you need to, further educate yourself? Do you need to better your hygiene? What is it about you? Do you need to improve how you communicate with other people? Is your spiritual life in balance? Do you need to cut off some people that you've allowed to stay in your life longer than they should have been? Because people are here for a reason and a season sometimes, and that season has been over. What is it that you need to do fearlessly out of self-love and self-preservation to show that you are loving yourself radically? Radically. This is your one life. One life. Don't hurt yourself in this one life. Live it. I posted this on Facebook this morning. Today is one more day than you will have tomorrow. Right? Make this life beautiful, y'all, and do your best for yourself and to others.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Amani, can you share with us, do you have any projects coming up, any books? Of course, I'm going to have all of your books on the show notes for the public so that they can access your books and things of that nature. But do you have any upcoming events coming up that you'd like to share?
Absolutely. On August 17th, I'll be at Octavia Library here in the Houston, Texas area with legs closed for girls from 10 years old to 17. I will be setting up an event for Learning to Love Me with the women. And then I do have 2 projects that people are more than welcome to go to my website, starpointpub.com, to sign up for. I am looking for people to talk about trauma. You can either be an expert like a therapist, any type of professional who deals with trauma, or someone who has dealt with trauma themselves. It's an anthology. And I am also working on another anthology that I just want other people to talk about their own personal stories when it comes to life itself. So please go to starpointpub.com. You can look at the 2 projects. You don't have to be an experienced writer. I will walk you through it, and you'll get author credits and you'll get author copies and you'll get invitations to any speaking engagements. You also get royalties for book sales.
Thank you so much for sharing that wonderful information And I will make sure to also have that on the show notes so that you guys will have access to it. Audience, I want to thank you for taking the time out. Amani and I know we were talking about many different types of things, but I think it all falls under that topic of audacity, being bold, of knowing who you are, discovering who you are, and moving forward despite what others might say you should be, and being bold within your own healing journey of reclaiming yourself. So reclaim yourself, move forward, and until next time, thank you for joining us with Elisha Space today.
As our time together comes to a close, we thank you for tuning in to Elisha Space. We hope this conversation guides you towards deeper connections with yourself and those around you. Be sure to subscribe to keep this essential conversation growing and to stay updated on future episodes.